Hi there, I'm Andrew, you're watching ThatGamerAjax, and for this week's video, I wanted to try doing something a little bit different. Now, I know that I talk a lot about Veil of the Void, but the thing is that I'm going to be completely honest, I've never actually played the game myself. Now, I run a game that our campaign's been lasting for probably a little over a year and a half now at this point, but as the game master, I have to run the game a little bit different. I have never actually experienced playing this game as a player, which I'm assuming that if you guys try out this game, the vast majority of you are going to be doing. So what I wanted to do was speak with the people that I have at my table, and they agreed to share their experiences coming from other tabletop systems like, either Dungeons and Dragons or Vampire the Masquerade, and kind of share their thoughts on what makes this system kind of stand out and what you can expect if you are a brand new player to Veil of the Void. So without further ado, please welcome the first two guests that I have, Alex and Diego. These are a couple of my players real quick. So guys, how about you introduce yourselves and then tell the audience, who you guys are playing in our Veil of the Void campaign.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Diego, aka Ogeet777. I play Nero, who is the exiled soldier in our campaign.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex, also known as Guppy. I am playing T1M. I'm playing the Tabletop prototype.
All right. So, guys, tell me a little bit about your general experience with tabletop games. I know personally, I didn't start playing until I was most of the way through college. Outside of Veil, I've only played Dungeons and Dragons, and then I played Hunter the Vigil with you guys, which was a lot of fun. But I know we're looking at kind of branching out a little bit more. But what all of you guys played, and what are some of the systems that you really enjoy?
I guess I'll start this one off. I actually have a very extensive playing tabletop RPGs. I started back when I was in middle school, and that's well over 10 years ago. Yeah, showing my age there. Started in middle school. I think the first system I played was Silver Age Sentinels, hero-based tri-stat system, so only three stats that you had.
By the way.
There you go, see? And you basically just use D10s in there. I've played Hunter the Vigil, which is amazing. Exploding D10 system. So in case anybody likes those, it's the Raid Sentinels book right there. And Dungeons and Dragons from 3.5, 4th edition, 5th edition, Pathfinder. And Veil of the Void as well. Just huge range. I've had several different groups, and it's been something that I've enjoyed extensively. Hence why I still do it to this day, which is amazing. So I mean, if anyone wants suggestions on the type of system, I got you.
All right, and Alex, how about you?
Well, seeing as he's my brother, I pretty much played just about the same amount of systems. I actually haven't played Pathfinder though. But yeah, so Silver Age Sentinels was our first one. I was really into it because when I was growing up, the two big things I was really into was one, comic book superheroes, and two, anime. So that at least filled one niche.
So kind of, well, I would almost say the best of both worlds, because let's be honest, you can always just picture things very anime. I would say that we've definitely a few anime moments in our Veil.
Oh, absolutely. And funny enough, I do believe Silver Age Sentinels had a anime conversion, like a system called Big Eyes, Small Mouth.
If I remember correctly, it did.
Yeah, and it's mentioned in the Silver Age Sentinel book. So, definitely anime.
Working off of that, I think a couple of the systems, I don't know if Diego's played them, but some that I know that I haven't played with him specifically. One would be Fate.
Yeah.
Okay. Fate was pretty rather interesting. Very different from what I've played before it. There's another one that I can't remember. It's a RPG in a book. But I just can't off the top of my head remember. And then the last one would be Call of Cthulhu. And I played that extensively.
Yeah, I know our group's talked about trying to do a Call of Cthulhu one shot at some point. So let's go ahead and just shift on over to talking about Veil. Like, how would you guys describe this game to new players, or like if they're wanting to try something that might be a little bit more sci-fi focused than D&D, because that's traditionally more of like your high fantasy.
So the way I would describe Veil, think of it, think of it as D&D, but in space, and not just like a direct port. It's very different. It's very customizable. So where you have D&D having as this like toolbox that here are your power tools and everything. You can think of Veil sort of as like a couple of guys with a couple of toolboxes, and you just start sharing things. Very much so in the fact we haven't done this, but I saw in the rules when we've talked about it how you can just take the abilities that you get at certain levels from different class and just switch them out. So I mean, like you're playing a soldier, but also then you know what? That smuggler's ability looks pretty nice at this level. I think I want to use that instead this time around. So using a D6 system, it's a little. It's easier given the fact that you don't have to go out and buy dice sets. You can just buy like a little, group of like 24 dice, and like, or if you just, if you're someone who's coming in from outside of the tabletop RPG world, and you just have like, Monopoly dice that you just, have around, or Sorry, I think Sorry is the one that has dice, right? Also,
Yeah.
No. Yeah, and then Yahtzee also. So if you just have like random old board games that you have lying around, you can just grab those dice and use them. It's really easy to get into. The rules are fairly simple.
Yeah.
Of course, once you start getting into it, you can get into these complicated situations. But that's any system.
Well, for me, the whole dice thing is pretty cool. For a lot of people who are dissuaded by math, Veil of the Void is really easy. Instead of having to roll this and then add these numbers and then add your proficiency bonus and then screw that. If you're rolling for this kind of check, let's say you're at level 3. Oh gosh, I don't even have my character sheet on me. But like I believe you have a little screen on a skill point, you can add a single pip to a dice. You can reroll a failed dice and then something else. I think maybe add another pip.
Yeah.
And what the easy part about that is that, well, it's really easy. 1, 2, very bad. 4, 3, 4, 5, 6. Awesome. And that's all you really need to know about the dice checks. And then that makes it really easy. The only complicated thing I would say would probably be the critical fails or critical hits.
Which let's be honest, we are still working on figuring that out. And I know we just got the new rule book, and it was supposed to be cleared up, and it's not. Like, even on the Discord server, like the game's creator has even said like, oh, this didn't actually like come out the way that I want. Like he's working on trying to get that updated for like the PDF version that might come out at a later date. But I guess like the big question I have is that where would you guys put this one out of all of your tabletop experience when it comes to crunch? Because personally, I feel like D&D is one of the games that you can basically get into a lot easier because you roll one die and then you just add your numbers to it. And it's simple math, but this one I feel is a little bit more complicated getting into because then you have to like try to figure out like which ones are a success, which ones are fail. So where does this one, like on that crunch level for you guys, where does that land?
I mean, it has very little crunch in my experience.
Okay.
So I mean, like as I mentioned, I played 3.5 and Pathfinder. Those are huge crunch systems.
Okay.
We're talking at a point where you can reach a bonus of plus 35 to a roll.
Okay.
Yeah, a plus 35 to a roll. We have monsters with ACs of 60. And these aren't like, I don't think they're legendary creatures and stuff like that, but like, I mean, they're high up there. And so, of course, 5th edition being like the very, new player friendly, it's much less crunchy. I feel that Veil is a little less so. The only The only reason it might feel just a bit more crunchy is just the dice themselves, because you're having to figure out, okay, this dice, this die is a success, this die is not, but like you're just basically looking at the number. And it's actually very similar to Fate, where Fate uses the Fate dice, where it's you have the minus, the blank, and then the plus. Essentially, minus is doesn't exceed, plus does.
Okay.
Essentially, it's just that, except you're just like, you know what, we're just using regular dice, just so you don't have to go out and buy special dice, which is essentially what everyone did with Fate. For in terms of crunch, yeah, Veil is very, very crunch light. So if you don't like doing math, there you go.
Okay. Well, I guess like for me, it's just like the number of things that you're having to track. At least this is the way that like I look at it. And then also just when it comes to like, rolling the dice themselves, I personally feel that like having to calculate how many like D6 you're having to roll in Veil is a lot more complicated than when you're having to just, you pick up your D20 and you roll that for D&D.
Well, when you put it that way, I would also agree. D&D is a lot easier because all you really have is the D20. Advantage, disadvantage, you roll two of them, and then you pick the highest or the lowest. Simple as that. I will say, though, with the character sheet with Veil, it does have that really awesome thing where, like, you essentially write down how much dice you're rolling, and it makes it very simple.
That's true, too.
The only thing that starts complicating it, in my personal opinion, is the auto hit and auto miss dice, because it does take away from the dice you're already using to roll. And that's when you start getting a little bit weird stuff. In my opinion, I think it's very easy because all you really have to do is group all the 1 and 2s on the side, 3 and 4s in the middle, the 5s and 6 on the right, and then you just start doing simple math like, oh, hey, you know what? I can re-roll none of them, so I'm going to re-roll this too, or I'm going to add one pip to one of them. So if I have a 4, I'm going to turn it to a 5 for a success, or if I have only 3s and 2s, I'm going to turn a 2 into a 3, so it's not a fail.
Yeah.
And I personally think it's incredibly simple, especially compared to a couple of other systems I've played. But I think it's when you get to that auto miss, auto hit dice, where it kind of acts as either a positive or negative. It also takes away from the dice you're already rolling. It starts getting a little bit complicated because the amount of dice you're rolling per check, depending on what kind of check you're doing, can change. So like whenever we had a boss fight pretty recently, we had a boss who had a negative or a like a anti-magic effect. I'm so used to rolling a specific amount of dice, and I roll a truckload of magic dice.
What is it, like 11 or 12, I think?
I think at the moment I'm rolling 10 or 11.
It's about right.
But because there was a certain points in the fight where, hey, I got an auto hit because of someone else's ability, or hey, I got an auto miss because of their anti-negative or anti-magic aura, and then like a whole bunch of negatives and positives started coming in, and I'm just trying to figure out, so how many dice am I supposed to be rolling now? Other than that, I really don't think it's a lot of crunch. I think it's a rather simple system with pretty much everything. I also think that for the most part, all the class abilities are rather simple and straightforward, with a few maybe 1 or 2, maybe in each class, or maybe 1 in each race, or maybe one of the races has like a single ability that might be a little bit confusing. Other than that, I think it's a rather cut and dry, simple, very similar to D&D class abilities as well. So it's just kind of, if you played one, you can really easily wrap your head around the others, except maybe 1 or 2 things you might need a rules check on.
Okay, well, so then that leads me to the next question that I have then is, so what do you guys think that Veil does right? Like, what makes you keep coming back and playing this game? Because our campaign's been going on for almost like 15 months now, I think. Because we started back in like March or April of 2020. Like, I remember like the pandemic had just hit. We had our session 0 to make our characters, and then it's just like, boom, no more like in-person games.
Yeah, no more in-person. So, yeah, that was back in February. Yeah.
Holy moly, that's
to March.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're already in June.
Yeah. We've been playing for well over a year. What keeps you guys coming back? What do you enjoy about Veil, especially for a game that is like, let's be honest, this is a small game. Like I feel like
Yeah.
we're one of the only groups that are actually playing it right now.
What I really enjoy is, I mean, it's a new system, so you get to try it out. There's new mechanics. It's like discovering something new, and I really enjoy that. So like, I mean, when playing video games, I like to explore. I will go and find every nook and cranny and search and see what I can find and dig up and see what I can do with it. And like, I mean, playing Magic, I like finding old cards, new cards, and how they interact with each other. And so starting with this game, I'm like, all right, let's pick a class, see what we can do with it, see what we're able to do. And even when we did the one shot, I was like, all right, let's try something else. And created a four-armed punching machine that just like all right, let's put power gauntlets on him and let's see where that goes. And I mean, it's something new that we're just getting to discover, get to try out. And it's amazing. I like the theme of it. It's like I said before, it's not just D&D in space. So I know like some people will point out towards or Starfinder, which I personally haven't tried, so can't really say too much into that perspective. But like, yeah, like having this theme and then creating this universe. I mean, reading some of the lore that's already implemented into the book, but then you creating this universe that we're interacting in is just amazing. Just being able to add a little bit more to the story, and that's what keeps bringing it back. Because I mean, like ultimately, a lot of systems could work for this game, but it's the story and the people that usually drive someone towards it. And it just so happens that this particular system helps us facilitate this, and it's fun. And I mean, I personally like the fact that I'm rolling like 11 dice to shoot somebody. Clicky clacking number rocks.
You only need like 4 or 5 to hit at max.
Right. Clicky clacking number rocks. That's one of my favorites. So I know like, oh, how many dice am I rolling? All right, like once you figure that part out, it's just fun to roll those dice and see. All right, I'm gonna hit you with 7. The 7 successes hit. Yeah, go roll on that crit table. Yes, sir. So I mean, that's what keeps bringing me back, especially like Starhammer.
Yeah.
We love Starhammer.
Which, just for the people that don't know, Starhammer is actually a custom railgun sniper rifle that I specifically made for our character Nero. That I think you've only got the thing charged up to max one time. I think you hit it for like 70 points of damage or something like that. But fun fact,
I think it was twice.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, but also with the Veil Reforged book, which just came out, which is our new rule set, the item is actually featured in the community spotlight. So I'm very happy with that. So Alex, what keeps you playing Veil? Like what are some of the interesting points of this game that keeps you coming back?
Well, the way I kind of think of it is kind of like trying a new type of pizza. You love pizza. Pizza's fantastic. Pepperoni pizza, it's a common thing that everybody gets. You're always going to get it. You're always going to love it. That's D&D. Over here, though, you got this fancy new looking pizza that someone just made. It's very similar to it. You can't be wrong. You still got your dough. You still got your cheese. You still got your sauce underneath it. But the toppings are a little different. They make it a little spicy. And that's honestly the biggest thing of it. Is like, character progression is very similar. However, the multi-classing is very different, like Diego said earlier. So character customization can be a lot crazier in this game. We've only like touched the surface of this so far. It still is growing, so starting to grow. It's very new, so there's a lot of ways to kind of explore, one, the game mechanics, and two, like the actual story behind it. Being able to discover and create something new, like you said, you actually were featured in the community spotlight. So being part of something so early, you can actually be part of this. Like, I'm sure D&D had its own things too in the beginning, where people were influencing the creators and creating. Go ahead.
Sorry, if I may. Actually, I don't know how many people. I'm sure a lot of people know this, but like Gary Gygax, he specifically put his home phone number in the original book so people could actually call him and ask him rules. So,
we pretty much had that with Discord.
And that's what we're doing with Discord right now too.
Yeah,
The Veil Discord server.
Trevor has his Discord server for people to communicate and contact. So yeah, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of openness kind of is really warm and welcoming. And then like another cool thing about it is that it is very similar to D&D and to a couple of other systems I played, but it also kind of splits off and does its own wacky stuff with its like actual abilities, the amount of things you can do. The great thing is like this includes a lot of technological advances. So there's a lot of things that maybe you can do this in D&D or in a different system like Pathfinder or Starfinder with like a spell, but sometimes in here it's like you can find a different way around this, or technology kind of starts making an impact because space travel is massive. Weapons, technology that you can for your equipment. So I know a couple of our team members actually have an item that they can see through walls. And I thought,
yeah, I scanner.
Doesn't everybody have that? I think except for you now, right?
I'm the only one who doesn't have it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nero gets the most out of it though, given the fact that he can see through walls with that, but because he's a soldier, he can shoot through walls, and because he's an exile, he can go through walls.
Yeah.
So it's just at some point walls don't matter.
Yeah.
Well, so actually, I think that rule did get changed a little bit with with the new edition. It's just like so using your trait, you can still shoot through the wall, but it does reduce the range of your weapon. That doesn't matter when your base range is like 40 squares. Like it doesn't matter. Like I will say, like you two specifically have single-handedly ruined combat encounters that I've had because of how you guys play your characters. But I guess like the one thing that like I wanted to touch on and get your guys' thoughts on, because let's be honest, like we all play a lot of D&D together. Like we've been like our group meets every week. We've been whenever we can. Once a week, and we know we've been alternating between playing Veil, playing D&D. But how do you guys feel about the ability to train your characters and like kind of develop the character the way that you want to, based on like focusing on specific skills? If you're not proficient with something, the fact that you can learn how to do it in game, and that enemies will actually it's written in the rules is that enemies will learn and adapt to you guys as you continue playing the game for a longer period of time. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Compare it to D&D, where you don't really get to do that quite as much.
I think it's wonderful. I mean, as you said, in D&D, not a lot of people use those things. I mean, I know in like when Alex was running our previous campaign, we were able to train skills, proficiency, and stuff. But outside of like him DMing, I haven't really seen that happen too often. Where like, oh, in my off time, I want to be able to train in this to get that proficiency. So usually you're just stuck with the choices that you have, or like, I mean, when like 5th edition released the those alternate rules where you can just start switching things up. I think the bards and the rogues are able to retrain in skills and proficiencies. So like outside of that, like I don't see it too often. So it's wonderful to be able to see that. Like, oh, I'm just gonna start, learning how to do this better and better, and get those, learn something new. And then as far as like having enemies learn your tactics, I mean, the fact that this is written in the book helps. It's great because it helps people realize like your antagonists are living creatures as well. They can learn. They can create their own tactics. Because I mean, oftentimes, like with like Dungeons and Dragons, you have the book and you have all the stuff that's written there in the monster manual about the creatures. Like, oh, this is how they usually fight. People would take that and just run it like that, and you see those creatures again, or the same enemy again, and they don't necessarily learn from your tactics. You just like, counterspell, being kind of like just the big thing in terms of like NPCs reacting to, your wizard or your cleric. And you don't really see that too often. Just enemies learning. And so the fact that, again, reiterating the fact that they put that in the book. It's like, hey, by the way, guys, they learn. So bring something, like, remember what your characters did? You can plan against that now. You're allowed to. It's okay. You're supposed to make it a challenge for your players. Otherwise, there's no meaning behind the victories. If they're not suffering a little, because like it's like that. This saying in life goes, no growth without pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of pain on my end because I'm just, here's an enemy that these guys might struggle with, and it's dead in 3 rounds. Okay. So, Alex, what do you think? Because I feel like you're one of the people, like, you've decided, like, you kind of picked relatively early on, like, what you wanted T1M to focus on. And I know that, especially with your arcanting, which for this game is kind of like what you use for casting your spells. Like, I think you have one of the highest level skills in our entire group, right?
Yes. Well, obviously I'm a mage, so I'm going to be using it a lot for practically all of my spells. But I kind of made it an effort where T1M is kind of like a blank slate. That was kind of the thing he was going on, trying to figure out who he was. So magic has probably been the one thing that he knew. So that's just something I was kind of pushing for him towards, and then branching out every now and then. And I think that's probably one of the coolest parts about Veil is that not necessarily kind of what Diego said about the whole, on my downtime on a train, but mainly focus on, like, one, this is a thing that I want to be good at, and I'm going to be freaking fantastic at it. And then 2, on the other things that you have no idea what to do, and let's say your characters want to dip into it a little bit, you can start learning a little bit. I know in a couple of other systems where if you don't put a point or 2 into something, you're probably never going to get it. And that's not true with Veil necessarily. Like, you can always put in a little bit of effort into trying to put some learning skills and do multiple checks on a skill that you're not very good at. You can fail a lot, but eventually you'll get something out of it, even if it's just a little bit of a bonus. And then the things that you do want to do, you become very proficient. And I think that adds a lot more to the whole role-playing aspect, because you can actually
see your character grow.
Yeah, your story-wise and mechanically wise, you can see the character progressively becoming stronger. So throughout this entire about year and a half, y'all have seen from T1M go from 6 dice, becoming like, oh, I know a thing or two about magic, I'm pretty good at it, to now I'm just like, yeah, I got magics. What's up?
Yeah. And also, let's not forget the fact that like early on, like, you were looking at specializations for when we would actually hit that level, which I know with a couple of the videos I've talked about how specializations are kind of like the archetype that you get to play. Like in D&D, you hit level 3. In this game, you hit level 5, you get your specialization. But you chose relatively early on that you wanted to become the runesmith. You wanted to be that gunslinging mage, which, first of all, let's just talk about the fact that it's literally a space cowboy with magic.
Magic space cowboy. Like, oh.
But
I'm a robot space wizard cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. But I still remember relatively early on, you even told me, you're like, hey, like, I want to start training with a pistol. So you went out of your way and you bought a pistol early on. Your character was terrible with it. You couldn't use it at all, but you made sure that by the time you hit that level where you could specialize, you are at least somewhat proficient with that gun, so that way it's not going to like ruin your chances of casting it. Not like that's really a problem for you, because I still think that you use arcanting whenever you shoot with that freaking thing.
Yeah, I didn't see that ruling on that, because I thought, oh wait, I would have to learn how to use a gun and be able to be a master with that, so I could use the gun to shoot my spells with it. And then goes to show, by the time I turn level 5, oh hey, I don't need to. I just use my spell casting anyway. So.
The thing is that I'm just gonna say, like, as the game master for this game, like whenever you guys are just like, hey, like, I want to be good at this thing, Like I want to practice with this thing. Like it warms my heart so much because it feels like you guys are really embracing the systems. And really, I guess like the last big question I have is what advice would you give for people that if they become interested in playing Veil of the Void, if this game gets bigger or reaches a wider audience, like what would you say to like let's go back a year and a half. Like when we first were setting up for this game, what would you either like, try to give yourself a heads up or even warn yourself about? Because there are parts of this game that are a lot trickier than D&D. And we've all had to learn and grow as a group. I mean, part of it was, misreading rules or even forgetting rules entirely. But what advice do you guys have for new players that are wanting to give this game a shot?
Don't worry about the choices you make because you're going to be able to pick things up. Like, as we were just talking about, training and things, you want to, be, a soldier that just swings the sword. You can do that. But at the same time, you can also pick up a gun. And even then, you can still pick up some magic because they have, an archetype for that. Pick whatever looks cool. Pick whatever speaks out to you, have fun with it. Your decisions aren't locked in permanently. And if all else fails, you can always make a new character. You just communicate with your storyteller, game master, dungeon master, whatever you call it, the big boss man with the big book. Because at the end of the day, it's all about having fun. If you're not having fun, just don't worry about it. Pick whatever looks cool, have fun with it.
Okay. For me, honestly, probably the biggest hurdle is always character creation, and every single system is always going to be very intimidating to make a character. Just go one step at a time. Once you have the character down, playing is the easy part. You role play a little bit, figure out how to do combat. That's it. Honestly, a lot of stuff is kind of just fluff. And you kind of do learn how to learn the rules one at a bit, but one step at a time. Character creation, figure out how to do that slowly. Don't let it intimidate you. And then playing the game's honestly the best part. Once you get past the small little hurdles of the mentality of you being scared to actually play it, it becomes easy. Make a character in a couple of minutes, play, fun.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think that's about it. Is there anything else that you guys just feel like people should know, just if they're going to be going into Veil, like I guess what to expect?
Jeez, there's a lot to expect. Tanky enemies. There's a reason why but there's a reason why they can be tanky. And of course, don't worry about the HP because that's the storyteller. That's the thing he has to worry about, or she has to worry about, or they have to worry about. That's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
But just expect a bunch of cool stuff: space travel, gunfights, sword fights, magic. All your fantasy tropes all locked into one, because we have a character that's a space robot cowboy mage. You have 4 different things in one character. So who's to say you can't do that with different other types of characters, whatever.
Then we used to have a martial artist tree person.
Exactly. We used that.
Our
boy Siva. Our boy Siva. Ghost sniper. Tree monk. And then Celestia. What exactly? They're space embodiments.
He's like a space. Basically, he's the extension of another universe into our own. That's encased in glass, and he carries a very big shotgun.
Yeah.
The easiest way I can describe it.
That can harness the power of souls.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. We get lost in the sauce.
Basically, just what do you think that new players can expect when starting this game up?
Man, if you thought a world in D&D was big, imagine having a universe. Oh,
Yeah.
mama. Oh, yeah. Also, Prototypes are you heard it here, boys. Prototypes are the best class. You can always play with your friends, and everybody starts off at level 1, and you can start off at level 2 because you're the best.
Yeah, the fact that you get to start a level ahead of everyone.
Yeah, that hasn't caused any problems at all for planning purposes or anything like that.
Oh man,
Yeah.
balancing combat for a couple of level 4s when you have a level 5 robot space wizard cowboy just shooting off a tier up in spells, and you're just like, oh right, you can do stuff like this now.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna weigh in as a person that's been running this game for a little while now. Just like the biggest hurdle to it is just the fact that there isn't a whole lot of published content. Like you have to be willing to homebrew or bend rules or just reflavor enemies, and just be willing to just like take it one session at a time. I mean, like we were originally starting the campaign as you guys were just going to be given odd jobs that were going to almost feel like connected one-shots more than anything, and then it just kind of took off, and now you guys are trying to save the galaxy, bring the gods back.
The fact that we started like, oh yeah, we're gonna go find this thing, gonna go find this guy, taking down like just some petty criminals that were jumping out of our building after like breaking into our rooms, and then all of a sudden we're overthrowing a whole dictatorship or monarchy, overthrowing a monarch, and then saving the galaxy, bringing old guys, stopping demons. Yeah, it's pretty damn cool. And I mean, like, I'm just, like the fact that you've been able to like bring our characters and our backstories like together, like that's amazing. Like you've done an amazing job about that, because that's like interconnecting everything sort of together, like little by little. You've done a wonderful job. You've been great at rolling with the punches, because like we've thrown some hectic stuff, because I mean, like, all right, close combats, we have a shotgun wielding monster. Long range, you have me sniping things from like 40 squares away, and and anything in the middle, we have a mage. So like,
and now you guys have a blade dancer that also thrives in close quarter combat.
Exactly. I mean, like, and like you mentioned, there's very little published content, so that's a lot of homework that you specifically have to do, which, like, props to you, man. Like you've pulled some great creatures for us to, great characters for us to go up against, and that's the one thing. Appreciate your storyteller, your GM, your DM, because they do put in a lot of work. And remember, they're also players. They're at the table to try having fun. They're also there to have fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I just gotta say, just from a game master perspective, like this is one, like, appreciate your players, like they're here trying a new system out with you, and like this is one that it can be a little rocky starting out. I mean, like, let's be honest, it took us probably like 3-4 sessions at least before like we finally felt like we were getting a grasp of the rules and like really getting this going.
So, yeah, I mean, even then, like we still found out little things that we were not doing correctly, but I mean, we still were able to pull through everything.
Also, I mean, like,
retconning, yeah. I mean, like the fact that we missed the whole hey, by the way, you forgot that you also rolled 2 more dice for combat.
Yeah,
I had been rolling with 2 less dice. What?
Yeah,
and then adding your stats to your damage. That's a lot of damage I missed.
Before we cancel this out, you guys got anything that you wanted to plug really quick?
I mean, if anyone wants to watch me play random video games in time, Magic the Gathering, or just chill and talk nerd time, check me out at twitch.tv/ogeets777.
And I'm not sure exactly how soon I'm gonna start pumping stuff out, but I'm gonna since I'm the DM for our D&D campaign, I'm actually gonna try to start a series either through TikTok or through YouTube, probably through TikTok, to kind of help starting DMs create NPCs, villains, that kind of stuff, just to kind of help their players get into the whole role play aspect, because I think that's probably my favorite part about D&D, just role playing into different characters.
All right. All right.
So yeah, be on the lookout for Guppy Tuckcat on Twitch, YouTube, or TikTok. One of them. You'll find
All
them.
right.